If you ever hear your radio call your name from somewhere deep in the woods, don't answer, don't respond, and whatever you do, don't follow the voice, because some people enter the forest looking for the missing and never return themselves. Today we have 5 of the most horrifying deep woods horror stories. Stories of missing people, abandoned camps, strange warnings, and things waiting far beyond the trails. Years later, the survivors still refuse to talk about what happened in those woods. This is Tales of the Dark. And this is the first story. The search team's last radio transmission. 28-year-old Daniel Mercer had volunteered with search and rescue for nearly 4 years. Most calls were straightforward: lost hikers, injured campers, missing hunters. Usually the outcome was positive, sometimes it wasn't. But nothing in Daniel's experience prepared him for the disappearance of Emily Ross. Emily was 21 years old, a college student. According to her friends, she had gone hiking alone in Black Ridge National Forest on a Saturday morning. When she failed to return by evening, authorities launched a search. The forest covered nearly 80,000 acres, dense pine forests, steep valleys, countless trails. It was the kind of place where someone could disappear for weeks. Daniel joined the volunteer search team the following morning. By sunrise, nearly 30 rescuers had gathered at the command post. Maps covered folding tables. Vehicles lined the parking area. Helicopters prepared for aerial sweeps. The operation looked routine, at least at first. The last confirmed sighting of Emily came from a trail camera located several miles from the main hiking route. The image showed her walking alone shortly before sunset, nothing unusual. No signs of distress, no indication she was lost. Then she vanished. By mid-morning, Daniel's team entered the forest. 5 members, 2 radios, GPS equipment, medical supplies, everything standard. The deeper they traveled, the quieter the woods became. That was the first thing Daniel noticed. No birds, no insects. No distant wildlife, just silence. At first nobody mentioned it. Eventually one of the team members did. "Feels dead out here." Nobody disagreed. Hours passed, no sign of Emily. Around noon they discovered an abandoned campsite. A small tent sat beneath a cluster of pine trees. The fire pit contained fresh ashes. Several food containers remained untouched. Everything appeared recently abandoned, yet nobody was there. Daniel radioed the discovery back to command. The response came immediately: "We don't have any registered campers in that area." The campsite made no sense. Still, they continued searching. Around 1 o'clock, the first strange transmission arrived. Static erupted from Daniel's radio, then a voice: "Team 3, stop moving north." The message was brief. The voice sounded distorted, almost mechanical. Daniel grabbed the radio. "Command, repeat." Silence, then another burst of static. "Do not continue north." Every member of the team stopped walking. The message had not come from command. The voice sounded unfamiliar. Daniel checked frequencies. Everything appeared normal. One of the other rescuers contacted base. Command reported no transmission, no warnings, nothing. The team laughed it off, probably interference. Equipment malfunction. The forest could sometimes create strange radio effects. At least that was the explanation. An hour later they found Emily's backpack. The discovery changed everything. The pack rested beside a fallen tree. Its contents remained untouched. Phone, water bottle, wallet, everything. People don't usually abandon supplies when lost. Not voluntarily. The situation suddenly felt much more serious. Daniel reported the find. Command ordered them to continue deeper into the search area. As they prepared to move, the radio crackled again. Static, then the same voice, closer this time. "Daniel." Every member of the team froze. Daniel's blood turned cold. The voice had spoken his name. Nobody outside the team should have known his location. "Daniel, turn around." The transmission ended. For several seconds nobody spoke. The forest seemed even quieter now. The team leader checked the radio. No signal source appeared. No identification, nothing. Eventually they continued, but nobody felt comfortable anymore. The terrain became rougher, the trees grew denser, visibility dropped. Around 3 o'clock they found footprints, a single set, fresh, heading deeper into the forest. The tracks likely belonged to Emily. The team followed them for nearly a mile. Then something strange happened. The footprints abruptly ended, not faded, not covered, ended. The final print sat clearly in the mud. Beyond it, nothing, no additional tracks, no signs of movement. It was as though whoever made them had simply vanished. Nobody could explain it. The search continued. By late afternoon, clouds rolled across the sky. The forest darkened. Shadows stretched between the trees. Daniel's unease steadily grew. Then came the third transmission. This time the voice sounded terrified, panicked, breathing heavily. "Please, don't come any farther." The entire team stopped. A woman was speaking now. The voice trembled. Daniel's stomach tightened. It sounded remarkably similar to Emily Ross, the missing hiker. "Please, turn back." A loud cracking noise interrupted the message, then screaming, then silence. The transmission ended. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. Every person on the team stared at the radio. The team leader immediately contacted command. A long pause followed, then command responded. Their voice sounded confused. There should be nobody else on that frequency. Daniel felt cold despite the summer heat. The scream replayed inside his mind. Something was very wrong. As evening approached, command ordered all teams back to base before darkness arrived. Reluctantly they turned around. The hike back felt longer. Every shadow seemed darker. Every sound felt threatening. Then Daniel noticed something, footsteps, not from his team, ahead of them. Somebody was moving through the trees, keeping pace, always just out of sight. Whenever he looked directly toward the sound, it stopped. The moment he continued walking, it resumed, crunch, 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 following them, watching them for nearly an hour. Finally, the command post appeared through the trees. Everyone relaxed. The nightmare seemed over until Daniel reached base. The communications officer immediately approached him. His face had gone pale. "What happened out there?" Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" The officer swallowed hard, then pointed toward a recording device. "We recorded your radio traffic." Daniel nodded. "So?" The officer pressed play. Static filled the speaker. Then Daniel heard the mysterious voice again. The warning, the screaming, everything. But that wasn't what made his blood run cold. At the very end of the recording, another voice appeared. A voice nobody remembered hearing. A voice speaking quietly in the background, whispering, repeating the same sentence over and over. And after listening carefully, Daniel realized it wasn't saying Emily's name. It wasn't saying help. It wasn't saying run. The whisper was repeating the names of every member of his search team, one by one, as if reading a list, as if it already knew exactly who was inside the forest. This was the end of this story. The Fire Lookout's final. 26-year-old Ethan Walker had always preferred being alone. That was one of the reasons he accepted the fire lookout position in the mountains of northern Montana. The job sounded simple: watch for smoke, monitor weather conditions, report any signs of wildfire. For 6 months he would live alone inside a fire lookout tower located nearly 30 miles from the nearest town. The isolation didn't bother him. In fact, it was exactly what he wanted. The tower sat atop Black Pine Ridge, a remote mountain overlooking thousands of acres of dense forest. The structure was old, weathered by decades of storms and harsh winters. A narrow staircase wrapped around the outside, leading to the observation room at the top. The nearest ranger station was several hours away. Cell service barely existed. Most communication happened through radio. When Ethan arrived, a senior ranger named Marcus gave him a quick tour. The orientation lasted less than an hour. Before leaving, Marcus handed him a worn leather notebook. The cover looked faded from years of use. "What is this?" Ethan asked. Marcus hesitated. "Your predecessor's logbook." Ethan opened it. Most pages contained ordinary notes. Weather reports, wildlife sightings, equipment maintenance, nothing unusual. Then Marcus pointed toward the back of the notebook. "The last few pages are different." Ethan frowned. "Different how?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he simply said, "Read them after sunset." Then he left. The strange comment stayed with Ethan for the rest of the day. That evening, after unpacking his belongings, he sat beside the tower window and opened the notebook. The final entries immediately caught his attention. Unlike the earlier pages, the handwriting looked rushed, messy, uneven, as though the writer had been frightened. The first unusual entry read, Day 114, something climbed the stairs last night. I heard footsteps, heavy footsteps. They stopped outside the tower door around 2:17 a.m. Nobody knocked, nobody spoke. When I looked outside, there was nobody there. Ethan smiled. Probably an animal, a bear maybe. The next entry was stranger. Day 117, the footsteps came back, same time, 2:17 a.m. This time they climbed all the way to the top. I watched from the window. I should have seen something, but the stairs were empty. The footsteps continued anyway. Ethan felt a slight chill. Still, he wasn't concerned. People working alone for long periods often imagined things. Isolation could affect anyone. The final entries became increasingly disturbing. Day 123, whatever is making the footsteps wants me to look outside. I won't. Day 126, it knocked tonight, 3 times. Do not answer. Day 129, I saw someone standing near the tree line, watching the tower. They disappeared when I used binoculars. Day 131, if you're reading this, don't stay after dark. Ethan closed the notebook. The entries felt ridiculous, the work of a lonely man losing touch with reality. He placed the journal aside and went to bed. At exactly 2:17 a.m. he woke up. A sound echoed outside, footsteps, slow, heavy, climbing the stairs. Ethan immediately sat upright. The footsteps continued, step, step, step. Metal creaked beneath invisible weight. His heartbeat accelerated. The staircase wrapped around the tower. Anyone climbing should have been visible through the windows. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and looked outside. Nothing. The stairs appeared empty, yet the footsteps continued, higher, closer, step, step, step. Eventually they reached the platform outside the tower, then stopped. Silence. For several seconds Ethan waited. Nothing happened, no knocking. No voices, no movement. Finally the sounds disappeared. The next morning Ethan convinced himself there was a logical explanation. Wind, temperature changes, old metal expanding and contracting, anything. The following night, however, the footsteps returned. Again at 2:17, again climbing the staircase, again reaching the top. This time came the knocking. 3 slow knocks against the door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the tower. Ethan remained frozen. The final pages of the notebook flashed through his mind. Do not answer. The knocking stopped. A few minutes later, the footsteps descended the stairs and vanished. The following morning, Ethan contacted the ranger station. He expected laughter. Instead, silence filled the radio. Then Marcus spoke, quietly. You heard them. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? Another pause. Then Marcus said something Ethan never forgot. You're the third lookout to report it. The radio fell silent again. For the first time since arriving, Ethan genuinely felt afraid. Over the next week, the activity escalated. The footsteps came every night, always 2:17 a.m., always climbing the stairs, always reaching the door. Sometimes there was knocking, sometimes there wasn't. Then Ethan began noticing something else, a figure standing near the edge of the forest below the tower, watching. The distance made details impossible to see. The person never moved, never approached, never left, just watched every night. At exactly the same location. Then one evening, a storm rolled across the mountains. Heavy rain hammered the tower windows. Lightning illuminated the forest. Visibility dropped. Around midnight, the power failed. The tower went dark. Only emergency lanterns remained. At 2:17 a.m., the footsteps started again, louder than ever. Faster this time, racing up the stairs. Step, 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 step. The metal structure vibrated beneath the impact. Ethan grabbed his flashlight. The footsteps reached the platform. Then came the knocking, not 3 knocks, dozens, rapid, violent. The door shook. The entire tower seemed to tremble. Then everything stopped. Silence returned. Ethan slowly approached the window. Lightning flashed across the mountains. For a split second he saw the staircase and someone standing on it, halfway down looking directly toward the tower. The lightning vanished, darkness swallowed the figure. Ethan stumbled backward, his pulse exploded. Another flash illuminated the staircase. The figure was gone. The next morning he decided to leave. Before packing, however, he opened the logbook one final time. Something slipped from between the pages. A photograph, old, faded, taken years earlier. The image showed 3 fire lookouts standing beside the tower. Ethan studied the photograph carefully. His blood turned cold. One of the men was his predecessor. Another was the ranger who worked before him. The third man stood in the background, partially hidden, watching the camera. The same figure Ethan had seen beside the forest. The same figure standing on the staircase during the storm. According to the date written on the back of the photo, the picture had been taken nearly 20 years earlier, yet the man hadn't aged at all, and when Ethan looked even closer, he noticed something far worse. The figure wasn't standing beside the tower. He was standing on the staircase, looking upward, as if he had already begun climbing. This was the end of this story. The campsite beyond trail marker 12. 31-year-old Tyler Brooks had spent most of his life hiking. He loved being outdoors, the silence, the scenery, the feeling of being far away from civilization. So when his longtime friends Ryan Cole and Mason Reed suggested a weekend backpacking trip through the Red Hollow Wilderness, Tyler immediately agreed. The trail was well known among experienced hikers, remote, beautiful, and challenging. According to park maps, the main route ended at trail marker 12. Beyond that point there were no official campsites, no maintained paths, and no reason for visitors to continue. At least that's what the signs said. The 3 friends arrived early Friday morning. The weather was perfect, clear skies, cool temperatures. The first day passed without incident. They hiked nearly 12 miles before setting up camp. That evening they sat around a fire telling stories and planning the next day's route. Everything felt normal. The following afternoon they reached trail marker 12. A weathered wooden sign stood beside the trail. Beyond it, dense forest stretched in every direction. The official path ended there. Ryan wanted to turn around. Mason agreed, but Tyler noticed something strange. A narrow footpath continued beyond the marker, barely visible, almost hidden by vegetation. It looked frequently used. Someone had been walking there recently. Curiosity got the better of them. After a short discussion, they agreed to explore for a few minutes before heading back. The path wound deeper into the forest. The trees became thicker, the sunlight weaker. An uneasy feeling settled over Tyler. About 20 minutes later, they found something unexpected. A campsite, not an old campsite, a recent one. Several tents stood among the trees. Camping chairs surrounded a fire pit. A lantern hung from a branch. The fire itself still smoldered. Thin smoke drifted into the air. Tyler immediately stopped walking. Something wasn't right. The campsite looked occupied, yet nobody was there. No voices, no movement, no people. Ryan called out, no response. Mason checked one of the tents. Empty. Every tent was empty, but the belongings remained: sleeping bags, food, backpacks, clothing. It looked as though an entire group had vanished moments earlier. The sight unsettled all 3 men. After a few minutes, they decided to leave. The forest suddenly felt much darker than before, much quieter. As they walked back toward the main trail, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them. Every few minutes he glanced over his shoulder. Nothing, only trees. By sunset they returned to their own campsite several miles away. None of them mentioned the abandoned camp. Yet all 3 were clearly thinking about it. That night Tyler struggled to sleep. Around 2:30 a.m. he woke unexpectedly. At first he wasn't sure why, then he heard it. Footsteps. Slow footsteps moving through the woods. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound circled their campsite, not close enough to see, but close enough to hear. Tyler remained still inside his tent, listening. The footsteps continued, steady, unhurried, almost deliberate. Eventually Ryan whispered from the neighboring tent, "Are you hearing that?" Tyler quietly answered yes. For nearly an hour, the footsteps continued circling, then they stopped. Silence returned. Nobody slept much afterward. At sunrise, they searched the area. The ground surrounding their campsite contained footprints, human footprints, dozens of them. The tracks completely encircled the camp, yet none approached from the forest, and none left. The footprints simply appeared around them. The discovery convinced Ryan it was time to leave. Immediately, Tyler agreed, so did Mason. They packed quickly and started hiking toward the trailhead. The atmosphere felt wrong. Every sound seemed amplified, every shadow felt threatening. Then they noticed something ahead, a tent. The same color as one from the abandoned campsite. The three men stopped. The tent stood directly beside the trail. Alone, no people nearby, no equipment, nothing, just the tent. They continued walking. Half an hour later, they found another one, then another, scattered through the forest, each belonging to the mysterious campsite beyond trail marker 12. It was as though someone had taken the camp apart and distributed it throughout the woods overnight. Fear began replacing confusion. The situation no longer made sense. Tyler checked his GPS. His stomach tightened. The device showed them moving in circles, impossible circles. They should have been approaching the trailhead. Instead, they appeared deeper inside the wilderness. The men increased their pace. Hours passed. The forest never changed. The same trees, the same terrain, the same silence. Then they saw the wooden sign. Trail marker 12. Again, the three men stared in disbelief. There was no possible way. They had been walking away from it for hours, yet somehow they had returned. No one spoke, no one needed to. Panic spread through the group. As darkness approached, they were forced to make camp. None of them wanted to, but hiking unfamiliar terrain at night would be worse. That evening the footsteps returned. This time they sounded closer, much closer. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Something walked between the trees.